Well, hello, everybody. Welcome, crowd. Playing a little different today. Nick is not here. He had something he wanted to take care of, so I get to run an interview today, which is super fun. We're already almost done with January, which is wild. We're recording this on January 22nd, 2026. I'm not sure when you're going to hear this, but that's when we are recording it. But we have an interview today, and this was the fun part with this interview. It's not a vendor. We have a lot of vendor interviews, which is great and wonderful, but I want you guys to hear from other urgent care owners that are having to deal with the challenges that you're dealing with, the successes you're seeing, and just have that honest, good conversation. So today I have Andrew Shulman. He's the CEO of the ModernMD Urgent Care, which is a 14-location urgent care in the Queens and Brooklyn area of New York. So he's seen a lot, right? When you think about where that area is, it's really cool. But he's been in the healthcare space for over 25 years. So he's seen COVID, he's seen Y2K area, like he's seen it all in the healthcare space, and I guess the emerging of EMR. And so his background is so deep. Even before he was at ModernMD, he was with Mobile Health. He was CEO of that, and they had over 6,500 network locations that he worked with. So he's seen giant, and now he's down to 14 and everything in between. Andrew, so great to have you on. And just like we always say to our guests, what's one thing about you that nobody knows?
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me. One thing that nobody or very few people know is that my ideal vacation is actually renting as large of a RV as possible and just getting out of the New York City area and enjoying nature. It's something pretty unique and odd for someone who has lived in New York since 1999.
You know, you and I could be good friends on that because one of our favorite, I'm in your same boat. I love nature. And if I can go on a vacation that's nature driven, last year, my wife and my 6-year-old, we're in Birmingham, Alabama. We drove to Maine, went to Acadia National Park, and as my 6-year-old daughter says, it was an 8-day camping trip because it was an 8-day camping trip. We had a rooftop tent on my truck, camped out it for 8 days. And then next week, I'm going to swim with the manatees.
I love it. My
Yeah.
daughter goes to sleepaway camp in Maine, but I am forbidden to drive a 42-foot RV into the parking lot on visiting day, which is fair considering it's a 12-year-old girl. She's like, that, not an option.
There you go. I respect the RV drivers because that just seems stressful to me, just driving in a big RV in those places. But especially if you're pulling it out of New York.
I love it.
All right, very cool. I love that. I love that we can connect on that. If we want to trade camping stories, we will for sure.
Yeah,
but okay,
start another podcast.
There you go. Exactly. I actually was on a camping podcast once to talk about it. So there you go. I'm in the Glacier. Cool. I've been out west quite a bit. It's a lot of fun. But all right, so let's get into it. So you're CEO of ModernMD Urgent Care. It's a 14-location urgent care in the Queens, Brooklyn area. So you guys see a lot of volume. You see a lot of things going on, but like you haven't been in this role terribly long. You were brought into this role. I think it was 2024 you were brought in, and you were coming from a different place for sure. Like it was not pure urgent care related, and so there's some learning curves along the way. But kind of tell me the background of that. How did that even come up as an option to you? And is it what you were expecting, or like, wow, that's a whole lot more different than I thought it was going to be?
Yeah, no. My background, like you said, this is only the fourth company that I've worked for. Right out of grad school, I worked for a hospital for a couple of years in a variety of administrative positions, then worked for an organization that focused on wellness services for employers, flu shots, biometric screenings, etc. And then 12 years for an occupational health company, really becoming a TPA. So after 12 years of and going through COVID, it was time to look for something different. And like everything in life, it was just about timing. The former CEO of ModernMD was entering into retirement. So they were looking for someone else. I started to look in the market, and I was looking to transition out of just the purely B2B space. The occ health space, wellness is super interesting, but I kind of did that for 20 years and was looking for something new. So it's been a fairly smooth transition, I would say. I will start by saying I enjoy the direct to consumer component of urgent care a lot, mostly because when you make a mistake with one person. And if that one person doesn't come back, then that one person doesn't come back, as opposed to When you're only in B2B and you make a mistake, you're putting a whole account at risk.
But yeah,
So the stress and the pressure associated with that is different. But so far, I'm really enjoying the industry.
that's awesome. Well, and it's you talk about B2B because the only when I think about urgent care and B2B, the only thing that an urgent care could opt for is some type of like occupational medicine situation where, in which your background that would be helpful. But yeah, that direct to consumer model, it is true, like where you're given multiple opportunities to mess up. You really
Yeah,
are. Now, if you keep messing up, you have multiple opportunities to not get any more opportunities because that's real.
this is true. This
Yeah,
is true. And Google reviews are pretty powerful.
they are.
Ideally, you don't want to mess up. And I've gotten pretty good at being able to flag some of those reviews for being improper, which helps.
Yes.
Yeah, we are actually, I am proud to say we have somewhere like 4.7, 4.8 stars, which is great. So
Well, I
I'll
mean,
keep it.
that's kind of awesome because we talk when we talk to urgent cares, like a lot of urgent cares suffer on the Google review side where they're below 4, touching 3 average, and like, hey, you're gonna have to fix that because that people don't want to do business with you when they question like, am I 50-50 shot at getting a good experience? But yeah, if you're pushing 4.7, that's really awesome. Let me ask you though, because going into that, what do you think is driving that positive experience? Because obviously you have competition, you have lots of urgent cares around you that could be offering similar experiences. What are you guys doing that you say this is probably what's driving the positive reviews? Like, what do you think is happening there?
Yeah, and we really do focus on our people. We try extremely hard to recruit and retain talent, and spend time training and on de-escalation and making sure that we're always treating people with a smile whenever possible. Our locations also happen to be in our mission, and when we were founded was focused on underserved communities. So I will say that I think some of that has to do with, unfortunately, traditionally, that the underserved populations, we have over 62% of our payers are Medicaid. They're typically not treated well, right? The red carpet is never rolled out, and perhaps the emergency room was really their only other entry point. So when you walk into a facility that is built out nicely and you're greeted nicely and you get in and out quickly, uh, it leads to 5 stars.
Now you mentioned briefly like treating people with a smile, which also is that part of you need to treat people equally, right? Where you don't know where they're coming from. You don't need to put a prejudgment on who they are when they walk up. But you have to treat them as fairly as the next person coming through. How does that type of training work for you guys? Because when I think because I do a lot of like front desk training with our clients and some things, and I say, hey, when you answer the phone, you have to answer it with a smile because they can hear and feel that tone coming through. And people are like, yeah, 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 I understand. It's like, no, no, no. Think about your Chick-fil-A and how they want to say my pleasure. Like it sounds so simple, but it's like it's creating this culture of like we want to serve you the best that we possibly can. We want to make sure you feel good the whole time. Like, how do you translate? Because I imagine like because I've talked to a lot of urgent cares, they struggle with like our people don't care or they're overwhelmed and they don't really want to go the extra mile of some sort to make that patient feel that much more special. Like, how do y'all combat some of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the vast majority, to be completely honest, starts at the recruitment. I
Okay.
think sometimes you either have it or you don't, and we try to recruit people that have it. And then I think it's walking the walk, right? It's the on-site management, it's leadership in general, making sure that the staff really feels supported, that we understand what they're going through on a day-to-day basis, that we give them the tools that they need and listen to them when there are concerns or issues. So I think a lot of that becomes systemic, and the frustration at the front desk is often not at the person walking in the door, but it's at me or the manager who has set them up for failure.
It's real. So I'll be speaking at the UCA convention in Chicago this year, and I'm talking about culture and how it can help with the idea of turnover and retention with your employees. Because
Mhm.
what you're just describing there, you have a culture of where we're here to help our people, not just say, here, to the wolves.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't care
more.
what your problems are. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not, I will say, in one of the challenges that I hadn't necessarily appreciated walking into the role is, we're open 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
So don't have the ability to pull people into a conference room and say, let's spend 2 hours going through this workflow and asking questions. It's 12-hour shifts, it's split shifts, we're on these 9 o'clock Zoom calls of people commuting home, they're half listening. It's really difficult to communicate with the staff, especially when you're rolling out new things. So that is one area that I definitely focused on trying to figure out what is the best way to communicate to people so that they feel supported.
So, part of your role, of course, is to help empower your managers to follow that flow because, like you said, you yourself, you don't have the capacity or the ability to talk to every individual staff person. Like, it's just not feasible because the numbers are too high. But you have people that need to reflect that, right? That need to reflect what you want, and then hopefully they can bring that down to the individual. But it's working for you guys because I obviously, like you said, I really think a Google review is a pure reflection of the culture and the drive of that urgent care, and far less about the patient not getting a good diagnosis. Because like those happen, like we get that, but when you actually look at it, most of your negative reviews focus on this doctor didn't tell me, just a bad experience, or the front desk was rude to me, or I didn't know where I was walking when I came in, just all these different things that sound small, but they add up over time, but they are a
Yeah.
reflection, right?
Yeah. Or, I got to the pharmacy and my prescription wasn't there.
That
That's a big
is,
one.
I hear that one a lot. Like I literally had a conversation with urgent care and I was saying like, hey, you might have an issue with this location because there's been multiple calls about the pharmacy does not have my prescription and it's been 2 hours since I left your place. What's up? And like some of that's like, hey, whoever checked them out did not communicate right, or the doctor just chose not to send it yet.
Yeah. Yeah. And the answer that I've gotten is the provider's like, it was really busy. I was running to the next room and I forgot. And it's really difficult to hold someone accountable when you're also saying door to door time is really important. Let's, keep moving. Let's go fast. So I think also that balance is something that I didn't necessarily appreciate, right? I want to make sure that you as a patient are fully heard and you feel listened to, but I also know you want to get in and out of here quickly and there are people waiting. So making sure that the providers have the skills to do that, and being able to kind of read the room and read the patient a little bit to understand which are they on the I'd rather get out of here fast, I don't really care about thorough, or I'm a thorough person, pull up a chair, let me tell you my life story, right? That's a delicate line to walk.
It is because like there's a line of efficiency and then quality and then the margin of some patients desire something more than others. And you're hoping the providers and the staff recognize it and adjust accordingly and not just rubber stamp a patient through the door because that
Exactly.
creates other problems as well.
Yep. Yep.
I love it. So let me ask you, so when you first came into ModernMD, what was one of the bigger problems that you had to overcome that you were not expecting, or like, oh, okay, we got to fix this. We got to make this better. What was that when you first came on?
I think it was actually the structure of the management team. There was not an on-site manager associated with one or two or three locations. Right now, I've got 4 multi-site managers that manage anywhere between 3 and 4 locations each. When I walked in the door, it was management. Obviously, we were providing good services, but it was very centralized and a lot of almost managing by spreadsheet. So we completely restructured and got boots on the ground again to more walk the walk and really get a good sense of who your strong employees are and who needs some assistance, and that active management. So that was the first thing that we changed.
I'm really fascinated by this. And I don't know what you can give away in information because I told you in the beginning, like, if you don't want to give this away, it's fine. But from a multi-site, because we work with a lot of multi-location urgent cares, and you're right, there's a lot of urgent cares that do spreadsheet management, and they just look at numbers and they have to account to a board, and then they have to just say, that's bad, but I'm not going to investigate why it's bad, but it's just bad. And then I have to like send off an email, you guys have to do better, whatever. It loses some of its empathy in the mix. But you're talking about like I want to know, like from a multi-site manager that's looking over 3 or 4 location, boots on the ground, like walking into those locations, what are they like checking for? What are the red flags they're looking for? What are the green flags? Like, hey, this is great. I'm glad this is happening. What are their goals ultimately?
Well, I mean, we do both, right? So we've got the metrics that we can provide to those managers to give them a sense of what to look for. So obviously volume, door to door time. We look at just growth in terms of like percent of new versus percent established patients. Um, so they can walk in with some sense of maybe what the problems are. Maybe it's overtime, right? Maybe one site might be operating at 2% overtime and the other is at 12. So and then I think it's really just being present and doing the things that you expect your staff to do. Like I will walk in a site and my managers are changing table paper, they're rooming patients, they'll jump in and draw blood if you need, whatever it is. And in doing so, they get a really good sense of how the staff is measuring up.
I love that you said they're basically walking the walk with them, where we're big fans of a good manager is in the trenches with their people and not afraid to go into the trenches with them. I've seen others where like, well, that's not my job.
That
Like
might,
yeah. Yeah, it's the most painful conversation to have. Well, that's not my job. Well, cool, but that's your responsibility. So we need to figure
yeah,
this out.
yeah. When I first started, I sat and I got I should do it again. I sat in front desk training for 2 or 3 days, and I got called out so many times for different things. So I would be the worst front desk person. But my goal was to, in the event of a call out, I would love to sit at the front desk and do that for a day. And when I sit there, right, it's like, one of the other things that I struggle with is X-ray, right? We have a very high percentage of payers who pay us a global rate. So every X-ray I do, I make no more money. Yet I've got 14 locations, 80 hours a week. If I were to put X-ray techs in every location, I'm talking, $2.5–3 million a year in X-ray techs. So where was I going with that? I apologize. What were we talking about? What was the
You're talking about
lost
you're
my
doing the
train of
front desk
thought.
training piece, and then how you're part of
Oh,
that.
so just sitting at the front desk. Thanks. So just sitting at the front desk, just listening to how many times they pick up the phone and say, "Nope, no X-ray today. No X-ray today.
Yeah,
Sorry, not today." Or and this is New York, right? Like I have a lot of trouble going to a Starbucks across the street if that's not the side of the street I'm on. So I'll hear my staff saying, "Oh, we don't have it here today, but you can go to this location," which is like, you know, in another borough. Like that's not like there's no way. They're definitely going to a competitor instead. So those things that I couldn't capture in the metrics, because unless I ask someone to sit there with a spreadsheet and count that, which in and of itself is never going to be accurate, that's data that I wouldn't have.
yeah, and that's 100% real. Like one of the things almost every single time when I have a client or our CSM say, "Hey, we need to go ask about front desk training for this particular client because of X, Y, Z." And I go in and listen to calls, and it's like, "Oh, yeah, you guys have a huge compassion issue. Your people don't give a rip about your patients."
Yes. I mean, I will say there are times I listen to some of the phone calls and I like there are still improvements to be made.
Yeah, yeah, and
I will
that's
say I listened to you this morning. I don't know when you recorded it, but our no answer rate is very low. I think it's like 2%, if that. I was actually
ooh.
disappointed when I looked at the data because I was like, oh, another thing I can fix, and it wasn't broken. It was very disappointing.
Well, and that's great. That's kind of fun because you're
Yeah,
probably hoping like that's an easy fix. I can fix that.
totally. I was like, I know another lever. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Well, and just to let you know too, so it's very interesting on the answer rate. So what can be deceiving about that metric is if you don't verify that because there's two sides of that answer rate metric. There's one, did it answer? Now sometimes the answering is a person or a device that answered. So it's
Mm.
no longer a missed call, technically speaking, from a metric standpoint. Then you have to look at the time length of the phone calls. If it's all under 60 seconds, there's a bigger problem most likely happening, especially if it marks
All
it
right,
as
so
a
we'll dig deeper. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So like
That's a
you have to
good
dig
point.
deep because I had a non-client that we like basically wouldn't work out for us to do work for them, but I said, "Hey, I'll do some front desk training for you because I want you to win. I just want to see something. I'm curious." And I went and so we did all the things. I got access, and I said, "Hey, man," he's a 4 location urgent care. I said, "Hey, you have 50% missed calls." And he's like, 50%. I said, look, it's deceiving because your phone system, your phone tree picks up. And so it doesn't look like a missed call, but then they just stay on the phone tree or they hang up by the time somebody gets to you. And it's just a whole. And then I introduced them to a friend that does AI stuff. And they said, yeah, we confirmed it with our AI. They were missing 50% of their calls. I was like, all right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I was looking. I was going to look at some of the AI telephone options. We'll see. I'll
Yeah.
dig deeper.
Yeah, absolutely. We usually recommend like a Flip AI that there tend to be a good standard out there. But anyway, going on to the podcast more. So so you talk about front desk, you know, the culture side of things, which sounds like, I mean, once again, that Google review rating reflects a good culture ultimately, in my opinion. Now I am curious because I hear this a lot and I get a lot of nods of yes. You have 14 locations. 9 times out of 10, if you have 14 locations or 10 multi-location, half of them are carrying the other half from a pure revenue profit standpoint. Is that in the same boat for you guys?
No, I think we've got probably 2 or 3 that I would categorize as underperforming, and the rest are certainly holding their own. You know, we've got 1 or 2 that certainly stand out as you know, our favorite children, but nah, they're all our favorite. But yeah, it's some of it's just neighborhood. You know, New York City, the neighborhoods are very different. The cultures are different. We focus a lot on making sure that we've got accurate representation of the neighborhood working in those facilities. Just a couple blocks can change everything. So yeah, it's not 50-50, but it's certainly not equal.
No, and you guys have something very unique where, like you said, a couple of blocks can kind of change a lot. And we had an urgent care that we had worked with that was, I think we had 56 locations or something, and they had it was funny. They were not in a big city. They were in regular sized cities like a Birmingham, like where I'm from, but they would have 2 or 3 locations that you could physically see from each other.
Really?
And we told them like, hey, this isn't going to work. Like this is going, but they didn't care. And then it became the reality. Hey, you're cannibalizing your patients. Now we tell urgent cares all the time, if you're adding another location, like in traditional sense, if you're adding another location, it needs to be at least 3 to 4 miles away from your current location. Now, in your case, it needs to be X
Maybe
amount of blocks away.
Blocks, yeah. Yeah, we looked at one a couple months ago, a single site urgent care that had closed, and we were debating whether or not to take it over. You know, it's very tempting when it's built out and you know, all you gotta do is change the signage to take on another facility. But at the end of the day, it just made more sense to just hope that we could take a good amount of that market share and funnel it to one of our existing clinics. It wasn't far enough away and different enough for it to warrant an acquisition.
Yeah, I mean, it's real. You have to do those evaluations and make a reality check out of it.
And those things get exciting. You want to do them, but you gotta look at the numbers first.
Absolutely.
For sure.
So that's a great transition to my next question, because let's paint a quick picture here. So the audience right now, if you have a multi-location urgent care, or you just got into one where you were single location, you just added 2 or 3 locations, or you just add your 20th location. So I know something that a lot of owners are going to ask is, what are my key metrics? Like as a CEO, I make this joke, like you need a CEO dashboard, right? If you got the perfect dashboard and you may have one, I don't know, have a perfect dashboard that tells you everything you need to know on the health of your urgent care locations, and then throws up red flags that, hey, we need to go focus on that location. Here's why. What are those key metrics that you really like? They're good indicators of like what's something good, what's something bad.
Yeah.
Basically saying, I know where to go and I know how to keep my company healthy.
Yeah. I mean, there are so many, and I am trying to reduce the number of KPIs and metrics that we've got, because you can go crazy.
Yes.
Obviously volume, right? Volume by clinic. And we look at it year over year, new patients versus established, to make sure that, you know, we're still growing. So volume is clearly a key indicator. Average revenue per visit is, and that's one, again, coming into, prior to this, even though I spent 25 years in healthcare, this is really my first time since I worked for a hospital that I had to deal with insurance billing
Wow.
in real life. Everything else was just invoice. And, so I had like receivable issues and things of that nature. But, I also did not have a great appreciation for the complexity and all the different components associated with that contribute to the average revenue per visit. So that number, and then trying to dig in to understand if it's not where you want it to be. Is it a front desk issue? Is it a post? Is it a claim issue? Is it denials? All of that. The average revenue per visit is a very strong indicator for us. And then honestly, the last one is just NPS. We moved to an NPS. It's great that the Google reviews are good, but the NPS score we find to be just much more actionable, because we do get it down to the provider level, which is a little bit more difficult to then, you can't go into every Google review and then say, okay, who do they see, and then track it, right? You could hire a full-time person to do that. The NPS score, we ask, in a post-visit survey, we ask, what's the likelihood you recommend ModernMD? What's the likelihood you recommend the provider you saw? And those two, if they give one a bad score, they're giving the other a bad score. They're very tightly correlated.
Makes
It's
sense.
very, very rare that you would see someone be like, I love the brand, hate the provider. So those are like, you get those. I mean, again, you can go on forever, retention and everything, but like if you have patients that are satisfied, good volume, and the revenue's good, like most things are running pretty well.
Well, and I'm curious, does a positive overall NPS score typically reflect a healthy location as well?
No,
No. Okay.
not necessarily.
Okay. So you could have quality care, but it's not making money.
It's not. Yeah, yeah. I think it's location, location, location.
That's so funny.
It
It's
really,
true.
like, a lot of it is. Because we have providers who run around from, jump around from one to the next. It's the community that you're serving and where you are. I think that's real. And obviously the competitive landscape.
Yeah.
But and then it becomes a chicken or an egg game. Like, is the NPS score driving the volume, or is the volume driving the NPS score? Like, you don't know which. Like, it's a very busy site, yet I have a really high NPS score. Like, I don't know. It's hard to figure out exactly which comes first.
Yeah. And I understand that. And it's that classic where, well, this looks really good. Why is this not working over there? Then you got like, well, let me go dig a little deeper and see if I can find the missing piece. And
Yep. Or we're quieter on weekends, for example. We just did this analysis. So we would have thought that our weekend NPS score would have been great. The providers have more time. No, they were actually a little bit lower than the weekdays.
No reason.
Stop looking.
You're like, this doesn't make sense.
I don't really know what to do with this.
Honestly,
I know.
My guess would be, as a patient, my guess would be I didn't want to go to the urgent care in the first place on the weekend because I'm missing out on, like, because if I get to go to an urgent care during work, I get to miss work. So it's like, hey, I get to miss. So it's like there's a more positive side to that.
Yeah, or maybe my employees are more pissed off to be at work
on the weekend. They didn't want to.
I don't know.
That's so funny, and that's the beauty of data. It only tells so much of a picture, and then you have to like dig into the why, which is always entertaining.
And then I got to the point where I was like, well, what am I really going to do about this? And I was like, I'm probably nothing, like maybe give, I'm probably not going to pay more on weekends. So I just kind of like moved on to,
that's real. Cause like actionable metrics is a challenge because you can, in our world, in digital world, impressions don't create actions. Clicks don't create the actions. You look at the conversion data and say, okay, there's some action. What can I do to make that better? And that type of stuff. And the same thing here. You're given all this wonderful data, but how much can I take an action on it? Or am I just wasting time? And it's just cool to report on, but
I will say some of the marketing data is also somewhat of a mystery to me in terms of being predominantly a walk-in facility.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to track a Google ad to know whether or not that individual clicked the ad, saw where we were, closed the browser, and walked in.
Yeah, that's a unique challenge that I wish we had as we've talked in the past, like a complete answer for, but it's just hard. Back in the day, they had Google Beacons, which was like the promise of that, but then those went away real quick.
Oh, I don't even know what that is. I don't even know what that was.
probably 10 years ago, maybe more now, there was Google Beacons, and they were actual devices provided by Google that you could place in your business. And based on cell phone, like it could track and connect the user walking in, which honestly,
Super
from like a
cool.
HIPAA standpoint, that ain't gonna
HIPAA, I
work.
was about to say, yeah.
Yeah, we can't do that. And it went away. It was a beta program. We tried real hard to get one ourselves whenever it came out, and it's like no, like, and it just went away really fast. But well, cool. So we're reaching toward the end of the podcast already. We're already over 30 minutes, which always goes super fast, which is awesome. But I want a piece of advice. So I want some advice for, because you kind of went through this, right? If you were going to give one piece of advice for a brand new urgent care owner, like they just either just opened one or they just brought into an existing system, what's one thing like, hey, you should focus on this or don't overthink this? What is that one piece of advice you could give them?
Yeah, I guess I would say, because when I walked in the door with my background, I was ready to start implementing new stuff. I was like, we're going to do occupational health. We're going to get into workers' comp. And like I said, pretty quickly, I realized some of the management structure and things needed to change. But even like a year later, a year and 4 or 5 months later, we're just starting Occ Health because we needed to get the operation with our core business running as smoothly as possible and getting all of the pieces, especially with RCM compliance, all of the core pieces of the core business in place first before we went on to the new bright shiny objects. And I'm renowned for being into bright shiny objects, so I had to have some discipline. But I would say focus on what you do every day and what you do best, get it perfect before trying to, get into other different.
Yeah, and we could preach that all day. We tell urgent cares all the time, focus on what you're good at. Don't be distracted by all these other, because there's this push of like, well, we need all these extra services to offer to combat summer slumps and all stuff. But we always say, hey, yeah, maybe, but how solid is your urgent care itself? Is that as smooth as it can be? And we even tell them, like, do not, because shiny object syndrome, adding a location, they're like, well, we're breaking even and we're making a little bit of money. I want to go add another location. No. You need to like be maxing out your current location where you are solid on it. And before you say, let's just go add, because that next location could suck it dry. And you don't want to have a bankrupt business because of a shiny object.
Yeah, I think I've heard you guys say like the easiest patient to sell is the one you've already got.
Yeah.
Right. Like making sure you get, like, I love that. Like making sure you get those revisit rates up is the easiest way to increase your profitability and your revenue.
Absolutely, especially when seasonality comes around, bring people back in.
Yeah.
That's beyond just an upper respiratory issue.
And apparently we had a crazy December, but a very quiet January. It's weird.
Yes. So it's kind of funny you mentioned that because we're hearing, so 2025 was a weird year in the urgent care space so we saw it with our clients. We saw it from Google search trends from a nationwide standpoint. It was very interesting because summer wasn't as slump of a summer as it usually is. Like it actually had some, like we actually saw in some of our clinics, they had more volume in July than they did in October.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. It doesn't it doesn't actually make sense. But then when December hit, it hit really hard about the second or third week in December. And it kept going until like the first week of January, and it kind of sizzled down. And we're seeing that right now. And some of that you can easily attribute to just the time of the year and how the weather's doing and all the things. But it's not as predictable as it was prior. And so now we're trying like, well, I wonder what's happening now. And then oddly enough, when it comes to flu, consistently, Oklahoma is like the flu capital of this country.
That is so weird.
Yeah, it's super weird. For those who are listening, if you're just very curious, go look up Google search trends, and it's Google search trends tool, and you can plug in like flu symptoms, and you can see national coverage on that and historical data. So you can see what's happening when and where. And it paints a really fun picture. But anyway, that's a cool. Shiny object syndrome for you right there.
Yeah. Next thing you know, I'm going to have 14 locations in New York City and 2 in Oklahoma.
It's so
a weird
good.
Story. Yeah.
Well, Andrew, thank you so much for coming on today. I love having an urgent care owner come on and just talk about like what's actually happening in the trenches, and which is super cool. And also just right then and there. Hey, we had a really crazy December, and it kind of settled down January a little bit faster than we thought it was going to. And you're just validating some things we've also seen.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this has been fantastic. I loved it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Andrew, for coming on. Audience, thank you again for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.